Let's review again from Perek Gimel Mishna Hey. Ha'achin shecholku, brothers that inherit their father's estate and split it amongst themselves, or two brothers, nosin shnei peyas. So each brother now is a separate owner of a separate field, essentially. Each brother has his own obligation to give peah. Chaz v'nishtatfu, if they join together again, nosin peyachas, now they're partners and they're working the field together, so it's all considered one field. They would leave one pay at the end of the field.
This was Mishna 5, right?
Yes. Shnayim shelakchu esa ilan. Similarly, if you have two people that buy a tree as a partnership, it's one tree. They happen to own it together. Nosin peyachas, they give one payah. However, lakach zet tzvayna v'zet dromo. If one partner gets the northern side and one partner gets the southern side, so their partnership is now clearly defined who owns what, then zenos and peilatzmo, zenos and peilatzmo. So this Mishna essentially is establishing another thing that would split peah is if you have separate ownership. If one person owns one part of or field and another person owns the other, even if there's no physical separation and they're planting the same crop, or if it's literally the same tree, but ownership alone is something that would split a field and obligate each part in pay. If someone sells like the stalks of trees, meaning trees without any of the land beneath them, to stay in his field, then the buyer is nosin pei mikol echad ve'echad. Then it's the same idea. So now you have one person owns trees; they're surrounded by somebody else's property. So someone else's property is an automatic break for peah, so the buyer is going to have to give a separate peah from each individual tree. Even though if you were a normal person who owned the land beneath the trees, you would give one peah from all the trees. Amar Yehuda said, "Emasai, when is that? Bisman shalei shiur balasada. If the owner of the field sold all of the trees he has. Avim shiur balasada, if he kept some of the trees for himself, who knows in pelakol? So then, since he owns the land and he owned the land and the trees, so he was obligated in peah from all the trees. So then we assume that he is willing to keep the obligation in peah, and he'll give it from one of his trees, and that would cover all the rest." Mishna Vav. Rabbi Eliezer says, "Karka beis reiva. If you have land the size in which you can plant a quarter of a kav of grain, which is approximately 150 by 150 amos, I think, about 200 by 200 feet. No, I'm sorry. It's about 10.5 amos by 10.5 amos. So about.
It's called a quarter.
It's rova is literally a quarter. Yes, it's a quarter of a kav. So it's a small measure of grain. It's about 10.5 by 10.5 amos. We'll call it, I don't know, 16 by 16 feet. Not a very big area of land. Mm-hmm. That's chayav peah. If you're planting grain, right? If you plant grain in a, he's saying it has to be a significant size before we're willing to consider your grain a field. So, if it's a 4x4 patch in your backyard and you decide to plant grain, so that's like a ridiculously small amount of wheat to plant. That's nothing. If it's enough, you can plant a quarter of a kav. If it's like 16 by 16 feet, so then it's minimally significant, but it's significant, and that would be considered a field. And you'd give peah. That's chayvus peah. Rabbi Yehuda says he goes by a different measure. Ha'isus asayim, something that will produce 2 saw of grain. A saw is about a liter. A lug is about a cow.
Why does the Mishna not translate that? I'm looking at the English. They say satayim.
Because saw is a measure.
Yeah.
It's a Talmudic measure, so it doesn't. It's not so easy to translate.
Oh, they would say 2 saw.
Right. So they don't even say 2 saw. They just say sasayim. Yeah. So sasayim is 2 saw. A saw is 6 kav. A kav is 4 lug. A lug is 4 eggs worth. So that'd be 16 times 6. About 100. I guess it would be about a gallon. So about 2 gallons worth of grain. So again, not so much, but he just goes by outcome. So the better the land is, the more it will produce. Obviously, the worse the field is, less it will produce. So he doesn't really give a measurement of area. He gives a measurement of what it will produce. Rabbi Tarfon says no, much smaller shiur. Shisha tvachim, even if it's just 6 by 6 tvachim, about 18 inches by 18 inches, let's say, even a tiny little area, something that the significance of that is that's the smallest area you would plant some little amount of vegetables in. Like if you want to plant, I don't know, some oregano or something, right? So you don't need to plant the whole big field of it. You just need a little bit. So something that big already is significant for some things. So he would require that pay for that size area for any amount. Yehuda ben Beseira says a different, very small amount again, but it has to be enough that you can't harvest it all in one go. It has to be big enough that you'll take your sickle, you'll cut down some, you won't get the whole field, because if you could do it all in one, he said that then by the time you started harvesting, you're done, and there's no reason to give pay. It would have to be at least enough that you could start the harvest and not be finished. And the Mishna says, halacha kedvarav, that the halacha is like him, that the minimum requirement for Peah is just enough that you can't harvest all in one grab. And Rabbi Kiva Omer, the most extreme shita, karka kolshu, any amount of land, does not matter how small it is chayeves bepeah, is obligated in Peah, and also bikurim. If you have any amount of land, you would have to bring bikurim from what grows on it. And then some more things, uvelichtav of pruzbul. So we have pruzbul is the idea that on a biblical level, when Shemitah comes, the 7th year, it cancels all debts. The problem this created was in the 6th year, people weren't so willing to lend money because they didn't want their debts to be canceled. So they made an institution where the lenders could give their loans over to the court, and loans of the court would not be canceled. But that was only if the borrower had some collateral of land. But in this Mishnah, we're saying the amount. There's no amount of land he must have in order for this to work. If he has any amount of land, you could use that to write a pruzbul. Another unique feature of land is the halachic way to make a kinyan, to acquire movable possessions, is by either picking them up or pulling them. For land, obviously, that's not an option. So there are other ways you buy it, either by paying money, by writing a document, or by taking possession of it. If you're buying land and movable possessions together, the method of acquisition on the land will work also for the other things. And again, for that, there's no minimum requirement for how big the land has to be. So if someone has a lot of different things in different places, and it would be troublesome to go pick them up or whatever it is, you could just sell him a little bit of land, and the kinyan that he makes on that land will be effective also for the other things. Okay, let's stop here, and we'll go over this Mishnah again tomorrow. It's a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
I think another year or so.